Hello, I'm Professor McCoy, and today I want to talk about Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and specifically a little niche topic within what's going to be called the Demonposting discourse. Now, if you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, don't leave. Stick around. I'd like to explain at least somewhat. However, if you're already deeply familiar with Frieren, you just want to get to what I have to say about Demonposting, go to this timestamp. And if you're already deeply familiar with the Demonposting discourse and want to just hear my insights on the topic, go to this timestamp, and then we'll go on from there. But first, for those of us who are not all that familiar with either Frieren or Demonposting and what that means, I'll give a brief summary of what I'm talking about here. So, Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a recently very popular anime series that I was talked into watching by a few friends of mine last year. It is, first of all, excellent. If you have not watched it, I will try to avoid spoilers, except for one. The only spoiler that I will talk about is in the Siege of the Demons arc, I think it's called. I'm not sure what it's actually referred to as, but it is one arc about halfway through the series, about halfway through the season, that I have to talk about spoilers for near the end of the video. So if you want to watch it, pause the video, go watch the whole series. I think it's on Netflix currently. That may or may not be true by the time this is posted or by the time you watch this, but give it a watch. In any case, it is fantastic. It is a medieval fantasy genre anime. It does that thing which I kind of love a great deal, where it is a Japanese take on Western fantasy ideas, which have been more and more common lately, it feels like. There is a kind of... there's an earnestness to it that can really, I think, only come up from a sort of outside perspective that I really enjoy. In any case, the premise of the show is the titular character Frieren is an ageless elf who at the beginning of the series has just completed the quest and has defeated the big bad evil guy, who is the Demon King, with her party of heroes. And so she returns with the party to the main capital city, and they celebrate, and they're victorious, and then she leaves for 50 years. Because she's an elf, and 50 years is nothing. And then comes back, only to find that her friends have aged, and she arrives only just in time for the death and funeral of who she comes to realize had been a dear friend, Himmel the hero. But the rest of the series follows Frieren trying to appreciate the adventure that she had before. And so it's called Beyond Journey's End, because the actual big story, the adventure that most of us would expect in a kind of medieval fantasy story, is over. And now it is her picking up a new life while honoring and appreciating what she's already done. It's a brilliant show, and I probably do want to talk about some of the thematic topics later, the things like the importance of death and immortality and stuff like that. But that's not for this video. In this video, the other aspect of the series is important, and that is the antagonists. The primary antagonists of the show, of the series, are demons. Demons in this context are monsters. They're not exactly angelic beings like they are in reality. They're not something like human spirits or anything like that. They are animalistic monsters that have gained something like sapience as a way to hunt humans better. They are purely animalistically evil. And so they even though the Demon King was defeated at the beginning of the story, they still remain primary antagonists throughout the actual story of the anime and the manga, for that matter. Though I have not read it. Not yet. I probably will at some point. I'm not promising. We'll see. I might. In any case, the demons are still this primary antagonist. They're this opposing force, or at least this obstacle to Frierin's sort of personal journey. And so she encounters various demons who present various sorts of threats. And I'll wind up talking about one of those encounters in particular in the sort of last third of the video. Now, moving on to this demon posting discourse. This is the trend typified in one particular video, which you'll find linked, and if you want to watch it, where we find people, a lot of this is on Twitter, but throughout the internet, complaining about the portrayal of demons in Frieren, that they are too unproblematically evil, and that is itself in some way problematic. The idea of this uncomplicated, unproblematic evil is seen as either stylistically simple, and so not worth considering, or problematic in the sense that it attributes something like biological essentialism to a group of creatures, with perhaps racialist overtones or something like that. Now there is, like I said, a probably the most famous video on the topic is essentially laying this out, is saying that Frieren's portrayal of demons is problematic in various ways, and is ultimately unsatisfying in various other ways. This has become, the discourse surrounding this has become part of the greater discourse of people on the, broadly speaking, the left side of the cultural political divide, sympathizing with the bad guys, particularly the inhuman bad guys. The broader name for this discourse is bug posting, because it probably finds its greatest example in a discourse surrounding Starship Troopers, where people will begin sympathizing with the bugs as being innocent victims in the matter, in this conflict with Earth, and that Earth's war with the bugs is something like a colonialist attack on an innocent species or something like this. And they are, in some sense, persons as well, and deserve a kind of respect due to them, which, even if that is true, this discourse goes much too far in assuming that because they are sapient, or even that perhaps the brain bugs are sapient, that warfare cannot be waged against them, or is in some way categorically unjust, or that Earth was the aggressor in the case, or in the case of the war, or something like that. Essentially, it comes down to sympathizing first and foremost with the hive of bugs rather than with humanity. It's sympathizing with them rather than with us. That Waits et al. Study, the moral concern heat map, or the meme at least about that, that gets brought into this discourse quite a bit. Now, I'm not gonna get into this at all. I'm not even gonna bring up if there are any problems with the results of that data or anything like that. Yes, I know. The last time I talked about this in a video, I got endless comments about you're misinterpreting the study, yada yada yada. That's not the point. The point is that this points out a politico-cultural difference in how we view ourselves versus the other, right? And so that's kind of what's going on here. That is what the bug posting or demon posting discourse is really about. It's about a certain section of the politico-cultural left sympathizing with the inhuman bad guys. And in the context of Frieren, that means questioning whether demons are intrinsically evil, or necessarily evil, or even whether they should be fought and killed. Or perhaps even on the sort of milder side, whether Frieren's hatred of demons represents a kind of bigotry. Okay, so that's the demon posting discourse. That is the fray into which I am entering. Now, I'm not going to address this whole topic because I want this video to be less than 2 hours long. Probably less than an hour long, maybe even under 30 minutes. We'll see what I can do. But, and also worth noting, this, the discourse as a whole and the video as a whole has been handled very well, at least for the most part, by a couple of other channels. I will link both of them in the description as well, so check those out if you want a broader overview on this topic as a whole. I, though, want to address one specific little question within this demon posting discourse. And this is where I have to get into spoilers. So, at this point, if anything I've talked about seems intriguing, and if you have not watched Frieren Beyond Journey's End up until at least this episode, don't remember the number, but this episode in particular, if you've not watched up until then, and you want to avoid any spoilers at all, stop now, and then go watch at least until that point. And I will mention no further plot points after that, so don't worry, you can watch up to that point and then come back to this video and then finish watching the series. That's fine. But spoilers coming. As if you haven't been spoiled by the memes about this already, but whatever. Anyway, spoilers coming. So I want to specifically talk about Frieren's defeat of Aura the Guillotine. This demon commander, whose sort of shtick is that she has this magic item that weighs her soul against yours, and the one with the greater mana, the one who's more powerful, their soul is more powerful, gains complete and utter control over the other. Okay. She's used this to great effect to enslave and destroy countless human beings, and presumably even other demons as well. She is tremendously powerful, and she's a grave threat. And of course, naturally, because Frieren is the overpowered protagonist, and that's kind of the point of the anime, she defeats her, but very cleverly, and very brutally, I will say as well. Ultimately, they show up for this contest of power, if you will, whatever. And it looks like Aura is more powerful than Frieren, but it turns out that Frieren had been concealing her mana, and then she unleashes her mana and becomes overwhelmingly more powerful than Aura, and therefore Aura loses the contest and is under Frieren's complete control. So what does Frieren do about this? And this is where we get to the demon posting question, because the original demon poster, the original video that sort of spawned this discourse, he brings up the question of why didn't Frieren, at that point, essentially enslave Aura and use her as a tool or a weapon for good? Because if you've seen the show, or if you've seen the memes, you know what happens. Frieren tells Aura to kill herself, and she does. That's the end of her. It's absolutely brutal. But this is how Frieren sees the best way of dealing with demons, these intrinsically evil creatures that are predators by nature and can only ever lie and destroy. And so destroying one back is, frankly, not a bad idea. If we're talking about just war, or if we're talking about justified self-defense, whatever we're calling it, I will go ahead to argue that this is absolutely the right decision. But the demon poster has this question as to why is Frieren why doesn't she even consider essentially enslaving Aura the Guillotine, this powerful demon, to her will, bending her to her will so that she can use her for some good purpose? Wouldn't that be better? Wouldn't we want to just use this evil force for good? Well, I mean, first of all, there's a Bible has something to say about this, but we can move on from that, because these aren't the demons of Scripture, right? This is a different kind of thing, so we can set that aside. What interests me about this is that the OP demon poster also spends a long portion of his video essay talking about Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's cosmology and metaphysics. and even his ethics of evil and ethics of dealing with evil. And yet, he doesn't quite realize that one of the primary thematic through lines of The Lord of the Rings is destroying the ring. Is the question of what should we do with this immensely powerful but evil artifact, this thing which could, I suppose, theoretically, be used by good people for good purposes, be turned against the will of Sauron, being the ring. And so why shouldn't we use it? I mean, it's the Boromir position, essentially. And so, of course, the answer to this is that the ring, being evil, is always going to be a threat to those who want to use it. And it will always ultimately corrupt those who use it. And sure, you might be morally upstanding. For now. But if you find yourself with unlimited power, the ring might grant you, or near unlimited power, or whatever it might be, that's given to you through the capacity to dominate others, which is what a large part of what the ring represents, then the chances of you remaining perfectly morally upright are near zero. And the longer this duration goes, the closer and closer to zero that chance gets. And of course, one of the other things that the ring gives you is immortality. So you have a long time, you have a lot of chances to fall to its evil influence. And so, of course, what should you do? Well, you can't just get rid of it. You can't just throw it away. Because if it gets back into the hands of Sauron, the world is over, essentially. We cannot allow this power for evil to wrought what it will. We have to do something about it. But we can't use it for our own good purposes either. It will necessarily corrupt us. And it's not because it's sort of just, magically corrupting. It's just that's how power works. Particularly power exercised as a way of dominion over others. And this is a large part of what Tolkien's point was. So we can't do that. So we have to destroy it. That is really the only option that we have that doesn't end in moral disaster. Okay, so let's apply the same reasoning to Frieren. Frieren encounters Or the Guillotine, an incredibly powerful, incredibly dangerous and destructive demon. One of, or perhaps the only, I don't remember, remaining lieutenant of the Demon King. One who got away the last time. That's actually thematically important, so keep that in mind. And so what does Frieren do? What can she do? Can she defeat her in simple force of arms? Doesn't seem like it. Maybe she could have, but doesn't seem like it. She certainly didn't want to, because Aura surrounded herself with essentially mind-controlled minions, innocent people that she was enslaving. So we can't do that. So, Frieren could take her power for herself. She could enslave Aura to her own goodwill. But that comes with a couple of problems. One, the power of temptation. If Frieren is to have this tremendous power at her beck and call at any time, have the power of Aura the Guillotine, to do anything that she will, and notice Aura's power is primarily martial. She's extremely dangerous as a warrior, as a mage. And so, Frieren suddenly gets access to a lot more power. And the way that she gets access to that is by moral compromise. By enslaving another being. Now, fine, it's a demon. It's evil. Don't get me wrong, I'm not demon posting myself here. But it is interesting and worth noting that the demon poster, the one who does seem to have have moral compunctions about fighting and killing these demons, seems to be relatively okay with enslaving one, but that's a side note. I'm not taking his view, so set that aside. This still involves exercising control over another being. Direct, absolute control. It is dominion as such. And that kind of dominion is morally warping. It gives us a kind of hubris. It at least tends to a kind of extreme hubris. This idea that, well, if I can have absolute dominion or sway over this powerful thing, or this powerful creature, what can't I? What can't I control? What can't I do? And so we don't want to think ourselves God, certainly. We don't want to commit a kind of self-idolatry. That is part of what this would lead to. The other point is that, well, if I've already morally compromised to the point of using this evil thing for my own purposes, of exerting this kind of dominion over another being, if I'm already morally compromising myself, why not one step further? Why not do another slightly bad thing? It's only a little bit worse, right? It's not that much. And then that goes further and goes further and goes further, and ultimately it spirals completely out of control, and you find yourself doing horrible, evil things on a grand scale. This is Gandalf's point of why he must not be offered the ring. That through him it would wield a power so great and terrible that it would be beyond imagining. Even though he would start off with an intent to do good. And the same, of course, applies to Galadriel, and she is tempted by the ring. Both of these are powerful beings who would be made all the more powerful by the ring, but they cannot. They know better than to allow themselves this even the slightest bit of temptation. The same would, of course, apply to Frieren, the most powerful mage in the world, perhaps. Given this great degree of additional power, even if it's not a categorical difference, it's still a great increase in power, and that is tempting in a very, very dangerous way. And the little bit of moral compromise that it allows for will lead to the next little bit of moral compromise. And over a long, long life, which Frieren expects to live, that path can lead to very dark places. Okay, setting aside the temptation part, another concern. And this is a concern that I brought up in another video I recently did on Star Wars. This one on the dangers of tyranny, the moral psychological dangers of tyranny. That the tyrant, one who is exercising absolute control, absolute power, in order to maintain that power, they need to be perfect at all times. This applies just as much, if not more so, here, in the case of Frieren, if she were to take control of Aura. Because the way that she is doing so is by overpowering Aura with her own mana. This has two consequences. One, Frieren, one of her main tricks, one of the things that she relies on the most, and which is a great source of pride for her, and a great tactical advantage, is her capacity to control and conceal her mana. To appear less powerful than she really is, so that others don't know what she is capable of and don't know what she is doing. She would immediately lose this capacity if she is always, at all times, having to fully exert her magical prowess in order to keep Aura under her sway. If she is no longer able to conceal her mana, she loses a large part of what makes her the greatest mage in the world. Or perhaps the greatest mage in the world. There's contests there, but whatever. The other aspect of this, though, which is perhaps more catastrophically dangerous, is not just the fact that she wouldn't be able to conceal her mana anymore. It's that she would have to fully exert herself at all times. And that if she were to fail, even for a moment, at any time, Aura would be free. And this great power, this great evil, would be re-unleashed back into the world. You'd be back in square one, essentially. Now, maybe she could do it again. Maybe she could beat her again. But maybe not. Maybe just maybe, Aura wouldn't give her the same deal again. Maybe she would have to You'll use more destructive means. Now, maybe Frieren could defeat Aura in a straight fight. But there's a reason she didn't do it the first time. It would involve untold destruction of innocent lives. Something that Frieren does not want to do. For good reason, of course. She's a good person. And then further, she already learned this lesson. Remember? I said this would be important. Aura was a demon that Frieren had encountered at least vaguely, or at least indirectly, before. He was a lieutenant of the Demon King. But she got away. She hid for, at this point, 80-something years. Frieren is not about to make that same mistake again by giving even the smallest chance that Aura will slip out of her grasp, slip from her power. Now that's a big threat, but it gets worse. Because of course it gets worse. Even the very fact that Frieren will have to be at all times concerned about this weakens her and is tremendously psychologically damaging. And this is the point that I made about tyranny. That the tyrant, or anyone exercising absolute power, controlling someone or something else purely by might, has to understand that that is a horrible way to live. Because you are constantly living with the knowledge that even the slightest little mistake at any time means disaster. And even setting aside the consequences of failure, even the consequences of success under those conditions, is tremendously self-destructive. And this is Plato's point, going all the way back to the Republic. When Plato criticizes the tyrant, and he points out that the tyrant's life is not worth living. It is worse than even the most wretched life of the just person could possibly live, because of the constant torment of having to be perfectly unjust, of having to perfectly exercise one's power at all times. And if you fail even for a moment, that's the end. You're dead. This is the life that Frieren would be choosing. And this is not like she only has to do this for a certain period of time, because, well, eventually she'll die, or eventually Aura will die. These are two immortal beings, locked eternally into this contest. I don't blame her for choosing to spare herself that. I might even say to choose to spare Aura the guillotine of that, but let's not be overly charitable. By choosing to end the threat, by choosing to kill Aura, even in so brutal a manner, I think is perfectly justified. Ultimately the right decision to make. Alright, anyway, like I said, I may wind up talking some more about different topics in Frieren Beyond Journey's End, but this has been on my mind a little bit in this having to do with this Demonposting discourse, also having to do with my thoughts on tyranny and the connection with Lord of the Rings. A lot of this has been on my mind lately, so I wanted to give this as a little shot into the discussion around this great series. So I hope you enjoyed. Hope this has given you something to think about. I'll see you next time.